All right, let's continue the journey. I promise it is well worth it. I'm hoping that the majority of you will take it seriously and get this in your head so that you'll be able to use it. I would recommend that you start looking at the choices you've made and see what parts fit within those choices, and also look at choices that your friends have made and see what parts fit within that, right? To give you an example, just real quickly, this will be a quick one, not a long one. I use an Xbox. The reason I use an Xbox is because that's what my kids use, right? So that's a way that wherever they go in the world, we can play some games and we can talk to each other like we always have. So that's a social, right? That's a pure element that really I'm not evaluating Xbox against PlayStation and which one has better this, that, or the other. Because to me, they're both so close that doesn't matter. So the choice then becomes, who can I play with? My brother also has an Xbox. His wife has an Xbox, right? So I want to be part of that group, not part of a group that can't play with them. So, all right, so attributes of the innovation. Let's take a look. So it's also important to consider the attributes of the innovation, and they are relative advantage, compatibility, and no, that's not what it's compatible with. That's if it's compatible with you and your decision process. Complexity, how complex is it? Trial ability, which no is not a word in the dictionary, being able to try it. And observability, can I observe it? So let's take a look at each one of these. Just got a little short thing on each one. Relative advantage is the perception of how much better the technology is than the preceding technology. What's the advantage? Perceived usefulness. What's the advantage to using this? Complexity is the degree a technology is in line with the person's past experience, existing values, and needs, right? This is where I usually will point out my existing values say, you know, I used to love Google. Honestly, I really loved them. Who doesn't love free, for heaven's sakes? But when they made this major shift to just basically saying we own everything and we're going to record everything and we're going to turn your microphone on when you don't know it, and we're going to see what apps you're using and what you're doing in those apps, I was like, you know, that my existing value, my values inside say that that's not right, and that later on somebody can use that to hurt me with. Because, I mean, in this society, they can twist almost anything anybody's done, right? So my experience in life has shown that, hey, people with that much power usually cannot be trusted. So I'm just not going to support them, you know, even if their technology is great. It doesn't go along with my existing values. So in this relative advantage, it's the primary thing is this technology really useful? Perceived ease of use. That's a main huge thing. Then is it compatible with me, my experiences, my past, and so on. That one's not as big depending on the technology, as you can imagine. Complexity, how difficult the individual feels, not how difficult it is, how difficult the individual feels it will be to learn and adopt the innovation, right? Perceived ease of use, same thing. Trialability is how much the individual can experiment and use the technology before fully adopting it. So that's actually being able to use it. That wasn't in our other theory. Can I actually get my hands on this and use it? Can I see how this works? Can I see how it functions? And this is really where, honestly, businesses that sell this stuff know about this theory. Right? They know they have got to get that out there so that people can see it. Observability, how much new technology can be seen, right? Which we talked about before. And it helps if they can see that within their social group, if somebody in their social group has done it. And then also when a technology is more visible, adopters have a greater opportunity to observe the benefits, right? They get to evaluate all this stuff before they actually accept it. So each of these influences how fast people adopt it, right? We're getting to the point where we're now transitioning from here's the person's reasons for doing things, and here's how it moves through society, right? So now we're going to move into diffusion. How does it diffuse through a society? So again, a society means maybe that's your work group, maybe that's your peer group, maybe that's North America, maybe it's the whole world, right? That's diffusion around a society. So it matters what type of innovation is. Is it optional, collective, or authoritative? Right, so just briefly, authoritative means you will use it, right? That's like when you go into work and they go, oh, we got a bunch of tablets and we think they're going to be helpful. And the ones we got were Samsungs, use it. Oh, yeah, obviously the adoption rate is going to be higher because you have to. That's what you have to do, right? If it's optional, it's going to be lower, right? It's like, no, I don't need to. And then collective is gathering it together as a society or as your group, right? The second is a communications channel used, such as, is it mass media? Is it interpersonal? Like for instance, mass media is awesome to get the word out initially. We've got a new electric car, here it is, right? But it's a lot different if somebody says, hey, I just tried that new electric car, and you trust them. So the interpersonal one means more to people, but the mass media one gets things to everybody quicker. Right? That's what it, right? Word of mouth holds up much more, but mass media gets it there faster. Nature of the social system, such as the degree of interconnectedness, the norms. In other words, the social nature of the system might be that you actually don't communicate that often. So obviously that's going to slow down adoption. But if you're always connected and communicating, then that's going to speed it up, right? For instance, is it normal for the group or society to share information about whatever that product is? And then the fourth is the extent of change agents' promotion and their efforts. These are big, meaning how much time do those that understand the innovation share what they know? Now, at this point, I'm going to pause and give you an idea of what's going on here, right? So you've got organizational innovation decisions and individual adoption decisions to consider. So let's say a school is wanting to revolutionize how they actually teach. So instead of saying, we are going to give you a topic, we're going to define everything in that topic, then we're going to test you over that topic, and then we'll ask you a question about how you feel about that topic, right? That's kind of the standard way to do things. Instead, they go through those first three and you go through and make your definitions. And then the next thing they say is, we want you to make a presentation as any kind, however you want to do it, that really takes into account all these little pieces we talked about and portrays them in some way. And here's your iPad or your tablet to do that with. Right now, that's fundamentally changing how classrooms work. If you were in high school yet last year, or the year before, you know that it's not typical. So how do we get teachers to do that? Right? They've been doing the same thing for the last 100 years. So how do we get them to decide to do it the other way? Right? So that will come down to the nature of that social system. If you've stayed out of those teachers' lives and haven't really asked them to do anything, it's going to be kind of hard because you're really not interconnected. A huge part of it is going to actually be hiring people that will be the change agents. Bigger schools honestly have people that, in this example, we would call change agents, but they call them teacher trainers. And they show them how to use the technology, how to see, right? To give them the triability, to give them the observability, to open up their mind to different things they can do with it. They're change agents. That's what they are. And so lots of places use these. That's how it's implemented. So when you're in innovation is being considered for personal use or part of an organization, in an organization, it's going to be higher, right? But the decision process is usually slower because they involve the entire organization. In other words, if you're saying, hey, we're all going to move to mobile and your phone is going to be the main way you get your data in and out, and then you'll have this cheap notebook that you use for everything else. So we're setting up and gearing our apps to do that, right? That has to be accepted quicker because it's in the organization. but the adoption is slower because it's like, oh boy, here we go, right? If you have a personal interest in something, then you're much likely to go forward with it quicker. So you may be one of those people in the organization that's like, oh, finally, about time that they did this kind of thing. This is great that they're doing this, right? And then really you are in this process, but you're also in this process because you're going to adopt this much quicker because you're really more into it. You want to do that. All right, so I'm going to stop it here and make another video for this last portion, which will be really quick. So I could just add it on here, but I'm going to stop it just so that it's